What's up everybody, and welcome back to another video about Tom Clancy's The Division. Episode 7 of the official The Division podcast is now available, and in it, Hamish sat down with game designers Matthew Desile and Marcus Rosengren to discuss what kind of loot players can expect to find in The Division. If you want to listen to the show for yourself, I'm leaving a link in the description box below. There was a lot of good stuff talked about in this podcast, so let's dive into it. First off, they discussed how different weapons can partner with different pieces of gear depending on the stats, and explain how these affect the player as they level up and find new weapons and gear with newer and better stats. With the vast amount of loot and stat rolls for both weapons and equipable gear, players will have a huge variations of options to play the game exactly how they want to. For example, certain pieces of gear can give your weapon a higher critical hit chance, and then on top of that, weapon mods can also give you increased headshot damage. So having weapons and gear complement each other makes for a lot of interesting combinations. But the best part about the gear is that it also affects how much overall damage you do, how much health you can have, and how effective your skills are. And these stats are affected by attributes. We got a glimpse of these in the E3 2015 gameplay, but now we know what they do exactly. Attributes come in three forms: firearms, which increase overall damage done by weapons, stamina, which increases your health, and electronics, which increases skill power. So by finding and equipping gear with the different attribute bonuses, you then change your current attributes and consequently your overall stats. This is great news for any RPG fan. With the stats, you can basically design any build just by searching for gear with the preferred attribute points. Want to play more as a tank? Then collect gear that has stamina. Want to play as a DPS? Then you might want to find gear with firearms and possibly electronics depending on which skills you're using. Attributes also play a factor in your weapons. How do they do that, you might ask? Well, some of the higher quality or more rare weapons have their own abilities, and these abilities can give you a large bonus to critical hit damage or increased damage after you use a med kit. These are just some examples. There will be a lot more in the final game, so think of these as super bonuses on a weapon. But to unlock these weapon abilities, you have to reach a certain number in the matching attribute. If this is a little confusing, here's an example. Say an ACR assault rifle has an ability that gives you massive amounts of headshot damage, but this ability is currently locked, so it's inactive. The weapon still shoots and functions like a normal gun would, but we haven't unlocked its true potential. In order to get that massive headshot damage, we need to have our firearms attribute at 50, but we're currently sitting at 30. So we need to equip gear with 20 more points of the firearm attribute, and then we will have our weapon ability unlocked. This might sound a little complicated, but it will make a lot more sense when you play the game, and it's extremely fun. This mechanic is also part of the end game. These weapons with the abilities are introduced progressively during the game as you level up. During the beginning of the game, you only have access to white and green gear, and the weapon abilities don't come into play until the blue rarity weapons. Currently, cosmetic gear does not have a rarity category, so anyone who will be looking for legendary cosmetic gear will be looking for a long time, because they don't exist. Which is probably good, because then people like me won't feel a special need to wear all the rarest cosmetic gear for bragging rights, even though it looks stupid. During the podcast, Hamish then went on to questions from Reddit and Twitter, and from these questions we learned that the dev team is trying to give each gear piece a theme. The vest is protective, the knee pads are survival, and the backpack is skill based. Now the question was about backpacks, and the backpacks will boost everything related to skills. But from this, we can assume that knee pads are going to boost survival. Now what survival is, we don't know for sure. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Also, since the backpack is related to the skills, it will also feature whatever skill is currently equipped in some way. They mentioned this a little while back in the intelligence annex, but it's cool to see it mentioned here again as well. We also learned that the contamination areas in the world you will come across will have certain levels, meaning you have to have a gas mask of a high enough level to access them. Currently in the game, contamination areas are leveled 1 through 4. So for a level 1 area, you need a level 1 mask, and so on and so forth. But if you don't have a high enough leveled mask, then you'll die in 10 seconds. So don't do that. Dark Zone loot will also not differ from PvE loot in terms of stats and looks, but in the Dark Zone you will find tougher enemies, which will then drop better loot. So the chances of finding the better loot are better within the Dark Zone, as opposed to PvE. So if you prefer to stay away from other human players, then you can still find good loot outside of the Dark Zone. Also, legendary weapons are not pre-built weapons with pre-designated abilities and stats. legendary weapons are randomly generated just like all the other weapons, so you can still get any combination of weapon abilities. But there are rumors about quote-unquote named stuff. Now what this stuff is, we're not sure exactly, but in a previous podcast they mentioned weapons of a more exotic status. So maybe we'll be able to discover named, more exotic and unique weapons within the world. Whatever it means, the fact that there are named items is enough to get me excited. Also, gear does not degrade. We've been asking this question for a little, or at least I have been asking this question for a little while, so you won't have to worry about repairing your gear. And also, sidearms are going to have infinite ammo in the final game. Well, what do you think about this? I want to know. Let me know in the comments. Also, grenades and health packs will not be on a cooldown either, so you'll have to preserve each one for the right time, especially medkits, because they take some time to regen your health after you use them to reduce the spam usage. Finally, certain buildings in the game will contain materials that pertain to that building, so if you need crafting stuff, look for buildings that relate to that specific crafting material. Realistic stuff. I dig it. Anyways, that brings us to the end of this information-packed video. What do you think of the weapons having abilities and using your attributes to unlock them? Let me know in the comments below. Thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, subscribe for more The Division content, and until next time, this has been Boomslangg, and I'll see you in the next one.